I died, on a snowy night. The broken tiles of the cold palace couldn't keep out the biting wind. I curled up in a moldy quilt, listening to the faint sound of music drifting from afar. Tonight is New Year's Eve. The Emperor is feasting with his ministers once again, while I, once the honored Empress, cannot even beg for a bowl of warm porridge. Your Majesty, Your Majesty. Yenchio's voice grew fainter and weaker. She had developed a high fever 3 days before me and was now nearing her end. I held her withered hand, remembering how she had accompanied me from the Eastern Palace all the way to the position of Empress, and then followed me into this abyss, a lifetime of loyalty. And this is the outcome she received. If there is a next life, I murmured, my throat dry and aching. If there is a next life. Hello, everyone. Welcome to my channel. Subscribe us to read wonderful stories every day. Now the story begins. My consciousness gradually blurred, and I seemed to see Duan Ning standing before me, still so young and beautiful, wearing the light pink Ruchuan dress from when we first met. Consort, you're awake. I opened my eyes abruptly, greeted by the youthful and vibrant face of Yenchio. In her hands, she held a bowl of steaming hot pregnancy-nourishing medicine, smiling warmly at me. His Highness the Crown Prince specifically instructed this morning, saying that the consort has been suffering from severe morning sickness lately, and asked the kitchen to prepare a light porridge. Yenchio helped me sit up, placing a soft pillow behind my back. The imperial physician said this pregnancy is going extremely well. It's sure to be a healthy little prince. I stared blankly at my flat abdomen, my fingers unconsciously stroking it. Is this Changye, my first child, the one who died young? Looking around, this was my bedchamber in the Eastern Palace back then. What day is it today? My voice trembled slightly. Replying to the consort, today is the 8th day of the 4th month. Yenchio looked at me with confusion. Have you forgotten? The eldest young lady is coming to see you today. Duaning, my heart jolted. It is today, it is this visit, that the Crown Prince fell in love at first sight with my legitimate elder sister, Duan Ning, and from then on, it changed my entire life. In my past life, I hated this day to the core, hated Duan Ning for taking my husband away from me, but now, I feel surprisingly calm in my heart. Help me with my makeup, I said softly. No need to be too formal, something simple will do. When Duaning arrived, I was admiring the flowers in the backyard. Sister, she walked over with a beaming smile, a light pink Ruchuan dress making her skin appear as fair as snow. In my past life, I was extremely jealous of her beauty, but now looking back, it feels like a lifetime ago. She was indeed beautiful, breathtakingly so. But so what, sister? I smiled faintly, not rising to greet her. Duan Ning seemed a bit surprised by my coldness but quickly smiled again. I heard you're with child, and father and mother are overjoyed. They specifically asked me to bring you some tonics. She signaled the maids behind her to present several exquisite brocade boxes. I had Yenchio accept them and expressed my thanks, but said nothing more. You don't look well today, sister, Duaning asked with concern. Is it discomfort from the pregnancy? I'm a bit tired, I said calmly. Since you've come from afar, sister, why not go to the front hall for some tea first? I'll change my clothes and join you shortly. I deliberately stalled for time, staying in my bedchamber for an extra half hour. In my past life, I was eager to flaunt the Crown Prince's favor to Duan Ning, so I specifically arranged for her to visit before the Crown Prince left the estate. And now, I only wish to avoid this destined encounter. Yet heaven seldom fulfills men's desires. When I leisurely walked into the front hall, His Highness the Crown Prince was already seated there, chatting happily with Duan Ning. The way he looked at her was a familiar mix of awe and infatuation. Your Highness, I greeted calmly, bowing. Nianqing, you're here. The Crown Prince smiled and waved to me. Your sister is truly talented and beautiful. We were just discussing poetry, and her insights were quite extraordinary. Duaning shyly lowered her head. Your Highness flatters me too much. I watched this scene quietly, my heart as calm as still water. In my past life, my heart would have been torn apart at this moment, but now, I only find it laughable. Men, always chasing after what they cannot have. Elder sister is truly talented. I smiled and said, I am feeling a bit tired, so I shall take my leave first. Your Highness and elder sister, please continue your conversation. The Crown Prince was somewhat surprised by my attitude, but was soon drawn back to Duaning's attention. I turned and left without a trace of reluctance. After that day, the Crown Prince visited the Shun residence more and more frequently. I focused on nurturing my pregnancy, no longer inquiring about his whereabouts. Occasionally when he came to my courtyard, I would only serve him as a matter of routine, no longer going out of my way to please him as I had in my past life. Concubine. Why aren't you the least bit anxious? Yanqiu said with deep concern. His Highness the Crown Prince hasn't come to our courtyard for 5 consecutive days. I've heard that the eldest young lady, Yanqiu, I interrupted her. Go get the half-embroidered little garment I was working on. The sunlight is good today. I want to finish it in the courtyard. I am not in a hurry, because I know the outcome. Duan Ning will enter the Eastern Palace and become the Crown Princess. And I will forever live in her shadow. In my past life, I exhausted all means to compete for favor with her, only to end up harming others and myself. In this life, I have decided to let go. 3 months later, the Crown Prince indeed requested the Emperor's decree to marry Duan Ning as his principal consort. On the day the imperial decree was issued, he rarely came to my courtyard. Nyan Qng. He spoke with some embarrassment. You know, Duan Ning I understand, I said calmly. My sister is both talented and beautiful. It is only right that she becomes the Crown Princess. I will abide by my duties and not cause your Highness any trouble. The Crown Prince seemed taken aback by my reasonableness. After a moment of silence, gratitude flickered in his eyes. You have always been sensible. I've heard these 2 words countless times in my past life. The Empress should be sensible, the wife should be sensible, a woman should be sensible. But what did being sensible bring me? Nothing but a withered corpse in the cold palace. Your Highness, I have a request, I said, looking up at him. You speak. I wish to move to the Chiwu courtyard in the west to nurture my pregnancy. It's quieter there. The Crown Prince hesitated for a moment. That place is rather remote, and you're with child. The imperial physician said my pregnancy is stable. It should be fine. I insist, I said. Besides, with my sister entering the Eastern Palace, there will be many affairs in the estate. I wish to avoid these disturbances. In the end, he agreed. 3 days later, I moved to the Chiwu courtyard with Yanqiu and a few close maids. It was indeed remote, but it had the advantage of tranquility. I could stay away from trouble and peacefully await the birth of my child. Changye was born on a rainy night. When Changye's loud cry rang out, I burst into tears. In my previous life, he died young due to palace intrigues, which became a lifelong pain for me. In this life, I vow to protect him at all costs. Consort. It's a healthy little prince. The midwife cheerfully showed me the swaddled baby. I carefully took it, looking at the rosy little face in my arms, my heart filled with tenderness. This is my flesh and blood, the most important person in my life. The Crown Prince came to see us, mother and child, only 3 days later. His face was full of joy as he held Changye, unable to put him down. Nianqing, you've given birth to a fine son for this Crown Prince, he said happily. After learning of it, His Majesty was also very pleased and bestowed the name Changye. I smiled weakly. Thank you, Your Highness. Duan Ning is also very happy and specially prepared some tonics for you, he said casually, his eyes still fixed on the baby in his arms. I sneered inwardly. Of course Duan Ning was happy. She probably wished I would stay in Chiwu courtyard forever and not disturb her and the Crown Prince's loving life. In my past life, I hated this to the bone, but now I long for it beyond measure. Your Highness, I have an impertinent request, I said softly. Speak. I wish to continue living in Chiwu courtyard. The environment here is tranquil and suitable for Changye's growth. Moreover, I hesitated for a moment. Sister has just entered the palace, and I don't want to disturb your newlywed life. The Crown Prince looked at me in surprise, a hint of guilt flashing in his eyes. Nianqing, you're always so considerate. All right, I'll send more people to take care of you and our child. After he left, Yanqiu couldn't help but ask, Concubine, why did you request to stay in such a remote place? Now that the eldest lady has become the Crown Princess, you should. Should what? I interrupted her. To compete for favor, to fight to the death. Yanqiu, look at the chrysanthemums in this garden, how quietly and freely they bloom. Why must we insist on being like those flamboyant peonies, attracting bees and butterflies, only to wither and turn to mud in the end? Yanqiu looked at me with a mix of understanding and confusion, saying nothing more. The year the Crown Prince ascended the throne, Changye was already 6 years old, just like in my previous life. Duan Ning was named Empress, while I was granted the title of virtuous consort. Your Highness, Consort Li has once again offended the Empress with her words in the imperial garden, Yan Shuang reported. I was teaching Changye to write and, without looking up, said, it has nothing to do with us. But Consort Li is becoming more and more arrogant, relying on the merits of her father, General Pei. Today, she even mocked the Empress for being old and faded. Yan Shuang. I put down the writing brush. Go to the small kitchen and check if the pear soup I've been stewing for Changye is ready. Yan Shuang withdrew resentfully. Changye looked up at me with his little face. Mother, why does Consort Li always bully Aunt Empress? I patted his head. Because they both like your father, the Emperor, and they both want to win his favor. Then what about Mother? Doesn't Mother like Father Emperor? I smiled. Mother has Changye, and that is enough. This was the truth. Having been reborn, I saw through the emptiness of an emperor's love. Rather than exhausting myself trying to win favor, it was better to raise my child well. In my previous life, after Changye passed away, I became even more ruthless and cruel. In this life, I only wish for him to grow up safe and sound, Your Highness. The Emperor is heading this way. Yan Shuang rushed in to report once more. I frowned slightly. Since entering the palace, I have deliberately avoided the Emperor. And he rarely visits my Jiaohua palace. Why has he come so suddenly today? Before I could think further, the Emperor had already stepped inside. I quickly led Changye to bow in greeting. Rise. The Emperor's voice was even colder than I remembered. I was passing by Jiaohua Palace and realized it had been a long time since I last saw Changye. I motioned for Changye to step forward and pay his respects. The Emperor looked at his son, a rare trace of warmth in his eyes. How are your studies going? Your Majesty, I am currently studying the Analects, replied Changye obediently. The Emperor nodded with satisfaction, then turned his gaze to me. The virtuous consort has taught him well. You flatter me, Your Majesty, I said humbly, lowering my head. The Emperor nodded, looking around. Your palace is quite elegant and serene. The arrangement of Jiaohua Palace is indeed simple. It lacks the extravagance of Consort Li's palace, nor does it resemble the opulence of the Empress's quarters. Adorned only with some plain porcelain and a screen I embroidered myself, I prefer tranquility, I replied softly. The Emperor stared at me for a long time before suddenly asking, Noble consort, do you resent me? My heart skipped a beat. I dare not, Your Majesty. Is it that you dare not? Or that you do not resent me? He pressed further. Since entering the palace, you have avoided me like the plague. Unless I seek you out, you never set foot in the hall of diligent governance. Back in the princely residence, you used to smile at me. There was a tone in his voice that I couldn't quite decipher. Now that you've entered the palace, it feels like we've grown distant. I lowered my gaze in silence. Should I say it's because I've seen through your fickleness and lack of affection? Or should I tell you that your favor is nothing but a reflection in a mirror or flowers in the moon? I just feel. Your Majesty is burdened with state affairs and shouldn't be troubled by the trivial matters of the harem. I managed to find an excuse. The Emperor let out a cold laugh. What a high-sounding reason. Virtuous consort. I remember you weren't like this before. That's because I was still foolishly believing in love back then. I said to myself, people change, Your Majesty. I lifted my head and looked directly into his eyes. Your humble consort now only wishes to raise Changye well and be a dutiful, law-abiding concubine. The Emperor's gaze was complex and hard to decipher. He reached out as if to touch my face, but stopped mid-air and eventually withdrew his hand. Enough, he stood up. I will come to see Changye another day. Tomorrow, the Empress is hosting a chrysanthemum viewing banquet. You should come too. Don't always stay cooped up in the palace. I obey your command. After he left, I let out a long sigh of relief. Yan Shuang whispered, Your Highness, it seems, the Emperor cares a great deal about you. I shook my head. The Emperor's heart is unfathomable. What he cares for today, he may cast aside like worn-out shoes tomorrow. There's no need to take it to heart, in this life. I only wish to be an onlooker. On the day of the chrysanthemum banquet, I deliberately chose a simple, elegant lilac palace dress, with just 2 velvet flowers and a silver hairpin adorning my bun. It was neither too shabby nor would it outshine the Empress and Consort Li. Mother, you look so beautiful today, Changye said, tilting his little face up. I crouched down and looked at him. Changye must remember, no matter what you see at today's banquet, tell Mother Consort after returning. Do not speak out on the spot. He nodded obediently. Your son understands. Just as Mother Consort said, troubles arise all day long, but if you ignore them, they naturally disappear. I patted his head with relief. In my previous life, I was so engrossed in pursuing power and influence that I never properly taught Changye about the dangers of human nature. In this life, I want to keep him away from these dirty struggles and let him become a wise and open-minded person. Yan Shuang hurried in. Your Highness, it's getting late, it's time to depart. I held Changye's hand and walked out of Jiaohua Palace. The autumn sun gently bathed the palace walls, making the glazed tiles sparkle brightly. This imperial city is so beautiful, yet so cruel. A banquet had already been set up in the imperial garden. The Empress sat upright in the main seat, her majestic crimson phoenix robe accentuating her dignified elegance. Consort Li sat to her lower right, dressed in a vibrant rose-red palace gown. Adorned with jewels and pearls, radiant beyond compare. "I pay my respects to Her Majesty the Empress," I said, leading Changye in a proper bow. Duan Ning showed a sincere smile and pointed to the seat to her lower left. "Sister, you've arrived, sit here, so we sisters can have a good chat." Hearing this, I rose and brought Cheng Yi over to take a seat. Consort Elengilwai snorted. "Her Majesty the Empress is truly affectionate towards Consort Xian," Duan Ning said gently. "Consort Xian is my own younger sister and has borne the Emperor his first son. Naturally, she deserves a little more care. What does it matter if he's the eldest son?" Consort Li gently fanned herself with a round fan, her words carrying an implicit meaning. "He's not the legitimate heir, after all." I lowered my head to sip my tea, finding it all rather ridiculous. Does Consort Li not know that the distinction between legitimate and illegitimate heirs is a matter of ritual, not birth? If we judge nobility by legitimacy, are we not inviting the entire court to laugh at the royal family? What is the point of fighting over such empty titles? In the end, we all return to a handful of yellow earth. Seeing my unyielding demeanor, Consort Li changed the subject resentfully. "Your Majesty, I heard the Ministry of Rites is already preparing for the imperial selection. In just over a month, the palace is bound to become lively. His Majesty has been on the throne for 3 years. It is indeed time to enrich the inner court." Consort Li is quite well informed. Consort Li parted her crimson lips. "I was thinking, with a few more princes and princesses to bring joy, Her Majesty the Empress Dowager would surely be delighted." She paused deliberately, just like the Crown Prince. So clever and quick-witted. I couldn't help but laugh instead of getting angry. I almost forgot to congratulate Consort Li. "I heard your palace recently acquired a statue of the child-giving Guanyin. I shall visit someday to offer incense as well. After all, in this harem, who can conceive the Emperor's heir still depends on the Bodhisattva's blessing." Consort Li's face instantly paled by 3 shades. For a moment, she was at a loss for a retort and could only shoot me a hateful glare. The Emperor's triennial selection ceremony arrived slightly earlier than in my previous life, sitting below the Empress. I swept my gaze over the young maidens standing in the hall, most of them 15 or 16 years old, as tender and fresh as flower buds. A familiar name suddenly reached my ears: Yang Shu, daughter of the Court of Imperial Sacrifice's Vice Minister Yang Heroine, aged 15. I abruptly looked up, my gaze fixed on the figure gracefully bowing in the center of the hall. Even though I had mentally prepared myself, seeing Yang Shu again still sent a jolt through my heart. She was dressed in a light green palace gown, with features as delicate as a painting and an ethereal, refined aura, exactly like Juanan in her youth. The hall instantly fell silent. I glanced discreetly at the Emperor and saw him staring intently at Yang Shu, so absorbed that he didn't even notice his teacup tilting. Meanwhile, Juanan's face had turned deathly pale, her fingers gripping the armrest tightly. "Keep the nameplate, bestow the sachet," the eunuch's sharp voice rang out. Yang Shu respectfully expressed her gratitude and withdrew. As she stepped back, she inadvertently looked up and met my gaze. A flicker of confusion passed through her eyes before they returned to calm. I quickly averted my gaze, sighing inwardly. In this life, we have finally met. Yang Shu. Yang Shu was granted the title of Graceful Beauty and given residence at the Jade Rinsing Pavilion. This was a higher rank and a more luxurious residence than in her previous life. Clearly showing the Emperor's regard for her, the Empress claimed illness and excused everyone from the morning greetings. On my way to the Palace of Blessed Tranquility to pay respects to the Empress Dowager, I saw from a distance a group of eunuchs and palace maids carrying various rewards heading toward the Jade Rinsing Pavilion, led by Li Dequan, the Emperor's trusted attendant. "Your Highness, should we avoid them?" Yen Shuang whispered. I shook my head. "No need, let's go our own way." Just as we turned a corner of the corridor, we unexpectedly encountered Consort Li. She was dressed especially glamorously today, her hair adorned with pearls and jade that glittered brightly in the sunlight, yet it couldn't conceal the gloom in her eyes. "Oh, isn't this the virtuous consort?" Consort Li said with a fake smile. "What, are you also rushing to flatter the newly favored Lady Wn?" I replied calmly. "Consort Li, you jest. I have just returned from paying respects to the Empress Dowager. The Empress Dowager does dote on you." Consort Li snorted coldly. "But I advise you not to be too pleased with yourself, who Yang Shu resembles. You know well in your heart, Her Majesty the Empress must be losing sleep over it now, as her half-sister. Won't you go and comfort her?" She deliberately emphasized the words half-sister. I sneered inwardly. Consort Li was trying to provoke me into dealing with Yang Shu so she could reap the benefits. Her Majesty the Empress has the Emperor's concern. Why should I interfere? I said calmly. But Consort Li, your complexion has been poor lately. Should I summon the Imperial physician for you? Consort Li's face darkened. No need for your concern. With that, she turned and left in a huff. Yen Shuang looked at me with worry. Your Highness, Consort Li seems. Pay her no mind, I interrupted her. Let's return to the palace. Chengye should be finishing his studies soon. In the days that followed, the dynamics of the rear palace began to shift subtly. The Emperor summoned Yang Shu almost daily, and lavish gifts flowed like a stream into the Shuyu pavilion. The Empress's illness lingered, with no signs of improvement. Consort Li frequently accidentally encountered the Emperor in the Imperial Garden, but unfortunately, it yielded little result. As for me, I continued to live a secluded life, focusing on teaching Chengye. Occasionally, I would pay respects to the Empress Dowager and listen to her updates on the happenings in the palace. During the Dragon Boat Festival, a grand banquet was held in the palace to celebrate. This was Yang Shu's first formal appearance at a major banquet since entering the palace, and everyone was waiting to see how this new favorite would perform. The banquet was set up around the pavilion in the Imperial Garden. I arrived a bit early and chose an inconspicuous seat. The Empress, looking pale, sat in the main seat, forcing herself to respond to the greetings of the concubines. Consort Li sat to her right, her eyes constantly darting toward the entrance. Before long, a eunuch announced in a shrill voice, His Majesty has arrived, and Beauty Wn has arrived. Everyone quickly rose to pay their respects. The Emperor held Yen Shu's hand as they entered, his face showing a rare expression of delight. Yang Shu was dressed in a goose-yellow palace gown, with only a few pearl flowers adorning her hair, yet they accentuated her snow-white skin, making her radiant and breathtakingly beautiful. All rise, please. The Emperor waved his hand and personally assisted Yang Shu to her seat, which was right next to Consort Li. Consort Li's face instantly turned ashen. The handkerchief in her hand nearly twisted to shreds. Duaning, on the other hand, barely managed to maintain a smile, but the disappointment in her eyes was impossible to hide. After the banquet began, the dancers presented a meticulously rehearsed performance. Amid the clinking of glasses and lively toasts, Consort Li suddenly rose to her feet. Your Majesty, I have recently learned a new piece of music and would like to present it to you and all the sisters here. The Emperor nodded absent-mindedly. Granted. Consort Li ordered someone to bring the ancient zither and played the piece The Phoenix Seeks Its Mate. To be fair, her skill was indeed remarkable, but playing this melody, which expresses admiration and affection, was far too overt at this moment. When the music ended, the Emperor merely remarked indifferently, "Not bad," before turning to whisper and laugh softly with Yang Shu. Consort Li's smile froze on her face, a flicker of venom flashing in her eyes. Lady Wn, she suddenly raised her voice. I've heard that you are exceptionally talented in both arts and skills. I wonder if you might also grace us with a performance. Yang Shu said modestly, I am of limited talent and shallow knowledge, and dare not show off my meager skills in front of your Highness Consort Li. Why must you be so modest, sister? Consort Li insisted relentlessly. His Majesty often praises you for being well-versed in music, chess, calligraphy, and painting. Today, on this festive occasion, it's the perfect time to let our sisters broaden their horizons. I could see that this was a trap set by Consort Li. If Yang Shu refused, it would seem ungrateful. If she agreed, she would inevitably be compared to Consort Li. Yang Shu looked at the Emperor, who nodded slightly. She had no choice but to rise and say, then this humble consort will make a fool of herself. Surprisingly, Yang Shu did not choose the zither but had someone bring a jade flute instead. As soon as the flute music began, the entire audience was astonished. I had never heard that melody before, clear, melodious, and soul-stirring, as if weeping and telling a tale, enchanting everyone who listened. The Emperor's eyes grew brighter and brighter, until he couldn't help but clap and exclaim in admiration, "Excellent! Such music should only exist in heaven. How rare it is to be heard in the mortal world." Yang Shu set down her jade flute and smiled shyly. "This is a piece I composed myself, Longing's Prelude. I'm afraid I've made a fool of myself. You are too modest, my beloved consort," the Emperor said affectionately. Li Dequan, bestow upon Lady Wn the pair of mutton-fat jade bracelets from my collection. Consort Li's face had turned extremely unpleasant. She abruptly stood up. Your Majesty, I am feeling unwell and must take my leave, without waiting for the Emperor's response. She stormed off in anger. The atmosphere at the banquet instantly became awkward. Duaning forced herself to say a few polite words to smooth things over, and the banquet was able to continue, but I noticed her gaze frequently lingering on Yang Sh, her eyes filled with complex, hard-to-read emotions. After returning to the palace, Yen Shuang couldn't help but say, "Your Highness, today Consort Li was truly bringing shame upon herself." I replied calmly, "The more she acts like this, the more the Emperor will dislike her." Sure enough, within a few days, news came that Consort Li had been punished with 1 month of house arrest for misconduct before the Emperor. Summer turned to autumn, and Duanning's illness grew increasingly severe. When the Empress Dowager summoned me for a conversation, she mentioned with deep concern, "Duanning has been absent-minded these days. The imperial physician says it's due to pent-up melancholy. The Emperor hasn't visited her in a long time." I remained silent. In my past life, I would have been overjoyed to see Duanning fall out of favor, but now, watching her gradually spiral into collapse, I actually felt a twinge of pity. The Empress Dowager gave me a meaningful look. "Go and see her. Persuade her to be more open-minded." Which woman in the harem hasn't experienced falling out of favor? Inside Fengyi Palace, Duanning's appearance was so haggard I could barely recognize her. The once radiant Empress was now emaciated, with dark circles under her eyes. "You've come, sister." She forced a faint smile. "Sit down." I bowed and took a seat by her bedside. "Have you been feeling any better lately, sister?" "Good." "How is it good?" Duanning suddenly became agitated. "The Emperor hasn't set foot in Fengyi Palace for 2 months. He only has eyes for that Yang Shu, that counterfeit." I signaled for the palace maids to withdraw, then said softly, "Sister, be careful with your words. What am I afraid of?" Dun Ning smiled bitterly. "What difference is there now between Fengyi Palace and the Cold Palace? Nianqing, do you know, yesterday was my birthday, and the Emperor didn't even send a word. He just had Li Dequan deliver the usual gifts." Her tears rolled down. "I gave everything for him. And this is how he treats me." I didn't know how to comfort her. In her previous life, Dun Ning maintained the dignity and grace of an empress until her death, yet now she was breaking down in tears before me. Was it because, without my schemes, she found it even harder to accept the reality of falling out of favor? I weighed my words carefully. His Majesty is merely momentarily captivated by novelty, but he will eventually realize who truly cares for him. Duan Ning shook her head, her gaze gradually turning hollow. "No, I know His Majesty. Once his heart changes, he will never look back." She suddenly grabbed my hand. "Nyan Qng, do me a favor. Please tell me, sister, I want to see Yangshu." Duanning's voice was so low it was almost inaudible. "Alone." My heart jolted. "What do you intend to do, sister?" "Don't worry, I won't harm her." Duanning smiled bitterly. "I just wanted to see what was so special about the woman who replaced me." I hesitated. In my past life, Duanning and Yangshu had almost no direct interaction. What consequences might this meeting bring now? After leaving Fengyi Palace, I went straight to Shuyu Studio. Yangshu was quite surprised to see me and quickly rose to greet me. "Noble consort, why have you come in person? It should be I who pays my respects to you." I looked at her. In just a few months, Yangshu had shed the naivety she had when she first entered the palace. And there was now a touch of composure and confidence in her speech and demeanor. "You're too kind, Lady Wn," I said calmly. "I came today on behalf of Her Majesty the Empress to deliver a message." Hearing the words Empress, Yangshu's eyes flickered slightly. "Your Highness, please speak." "Her Majesty the Empress wishes to see you alone, tomorrow at noon, in the rear garden of Fengyi Palace." Yangshu frowned slightly. "This isn't proper, is it?" "Indeed, it is not proper." I looked straight into her eyes. "So whether to go or not is entirely up to Lady Wn herself." With that, I turned and left, not giving her a chance to question further. I had done all I could. The rest was up to their own fate. The next day, when Changye returned from school, I was trimming a pot of chrysanthemums. "Mother," he rushed in excitedly, "your son has been studying Mencius today, and Tutor Zhong praised me for my good understanding." I put down the scissors and wiped the sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief. "Speak slowly, no need to rush." "Mother, your son has a question." Changye suddenly lowered his voice. "Why doesn't father like the Empress anymore? Wasn't she the woman father loved the most?" My heart skipped a beat. "Who told you this?" "Everyone in the palace is talking about it." Changye blinked his big eyes. "They say Consort Wn looks like Mother Empress when she was young. Which is why Father Emperor dotes on her so much." I pulled him to sit down. "Changye, remember what your mother tells you. In this harem, love is the most unreliable thing. To be favored today and fall out of favor tomorrow, it's all commonplace." What matters is to hold fast to your true heart and not be swayed by external things. Chengye nodded with a half-understanding. Just like mother consort, I smiled. Yes, just like mother consort. Then, what if one day Father Emperor doesn't like me anymore? My heart ached, and I pulled him into my arms. He won't. You are his eldest son. He will always care for you. And, I held his little face in my hands. No matter what happens, mother will always be by your side. Chengye leaned against my chest and suddenly said, Mother, when I grow up, I will protect you and not let anyone bully you. My eyes instantly welled up with tears. The child who had left me in my past life was now healthy and lively in my arms, vowing to protect me. This was the greatest blessing heaven had given me. Good child, I kissed his forehead, but for now, let your mother protect you. Just as I spoke, Shuang hurried in. Your Highness, something has happened at Fengyi Palace. When I arrived at Fengyi Palace, the scene was in chaos. Juanan fainted on the stone table in the garden, while Yangshu was anxiously pressing her philtrum. And several palace maids stood by helplessly. What happened? I hurried forward. Seeing me, Yangshu looked as if she had found a savior. Noble consort. The Empress suddenly fainted. Stop talking. Summon the imperial physician first. I interrupted her. While signaling Shuang to help carry Juanan into the inner chamber, Yangshu hesitated for a moment. Should this concubine withdraw first? I looked at her deeply. What do you think? She bit her lip. This concubine understands. Today. This concubine was never at the Phoenix Palace. As clever as Yangshu, she naturally understood the stakes. If it were known that the Empress fainted while summoning a favored consort, who knew what kind of turmoil it would stir up? After Yangshu hurried away, the imperial physician arrived. The diagnosis was that the Empress had long been depressed, coupled with an irregular diet, leading to a deficiency of both qi and blood, and she needed to rest quietly. I sent someone to report to the Hall of Diligent Governance, but was told that the Emperor was in a meeting with his ministers and had no time to come. He only sent word for the Empress to rest well and for the imperial physician to remain on standby. When Duan Ning woke up, it was already dusk. She saw me keeping watch by the bedside, and a flicker of disappointment passed through her eyes. He didn't come, did he? She asked weakly. I didn't answer. Just helped her sit up and handed her a bowl of ginseng soup. Sister, have some ginseng soup to refresh yourself first. Juanan mechanically took a few sips, then suddenly asked, Yangshu, what did she say to you? Nothing much, I said softly. She hadn't been here long before you fainted, sister. Juanan smiled bitterly. You know, she is indeed special. Not only does she resemble my younger self, she is clever, perceptive, and knows how to read the situation. Most importantly, when she speaks of the Emperor, there is admiration and infatuation in her eyes, but not the kind of obsessive fixation that I have. I listened quietly, my heart filled with complex emotions. Juanan had always maintained the pride of an empress in front of others, yet now she was dissecting her own failures before me. Sister, rest now. I tucked her blanket in. Some things cannot be forced. Juanan suddenly grabbed my hand. Nianqing, you've changed. Back in the Eastern Palace, your eyes and heart were all for the Emperor. But now, you look at all this as if watching a play. My heart jolted. I never expected the one who understood me best would be the person I once hated most. People change, I replied softly. After the Double Ninth Festival, the weather gradually turned colder. That day, I was in the study teaching Chengye how to practice calligraphy when Shuang hurried in to announce, Your Highness. Lady Wan requests an audience. My brush paused slightly. It had been over half a year since Yangshu entered the palace, and this was the first time she had taken the initiative to come to Jiaohua Hall. Invite her to wait in the main hall. I set down the brush. Chengye, practice on your own for now. In the main hall, Yangshu was admiring a landscape painting hanging on the wall. Hearing footsteps, she turned and bowed. I apologize for my intrusion, Your Highness Consort Xian. Please forgive my presumption. You are too polite. Lady Wan, I gestured for her to sit. May I ask what brings you here today? After the palace maid served tea and snacks and withdrew, Yangshu took a gentle sip of tea before speaking. Actually, I came to express my gratitude. Thank you. That day in Fengyi Palace, if Your Highness hadn't arrived in time, I fear I would have. She trailed off, a flicker of lingering fear in her eyes. I smiled faintly. You exaggerate, Lady Wan. Her Majesty the Empress was merely feeling unwell for a moment. It had nothing to do with you. Yangshu looked at me deeply. Your Highness is indeed as benevolent as the rumors say. However, she lowered her voice. I always feel, Your Highness, as if you already knew what would happen. My heart trembled slightly. Yang Shu was indeed clever and perceptive, just a coincidence, I said lightly. But Lady Wn, meeting the Empress in private is truly risky, Yang Shu smiled bitterly. How could I not know, but when the Empress summons, I dare not refuse. She hesitated for a moment. Your Highness, this humble consort has a request to make, speak freely. Since entering the palace, I have always heard that Your Highness, the virtuous consort, is of a serene disposition and does not contend with others. Yang Shu said sincerely, in this harem, I tread as if on thin ice, and I wish to ask Your Highness for some guidance. I examine the woman before me, who is exceptionally intelligent. In my past life, she was my greatest enemy, and we fought to the death, and now, she comes to me for guidance. You overestimate me, Lady Wn. I slowly shake my head. I am but an idle person, ignorant of worldly affairs. What guidance could I possibly offer you? Yang Shu seemed to have anticipated my refusal. Your Highness is too modest. Although I have not been in the palace for long, I can see that you are deeply favored by the Empress Dowager. And even His Majesty holds you in special regard. This is no coincidence. I smiled without speaking. She continued, I dare not hope for Your Highness's protection, but only wish, if danger arises, to receive a word of warning from you. With things put so plainly, refusing would only seem deliberate. After a moment of thought, I said, since Lady Wn is so sincere, I will say this, be careful of Consort Li. Yang Shu said gratefully, I understand, thank you, Your Highness. As she rose to take her leave, she suddenly noticed a copy of *Zhuangzi* on the table and asked curiously, Your Highness reads Zhuangzi as well? Just flipping through it occasionally, I replied casually, when the spring dries up, the fish are left stranded on land, moistening each other with their breath and wetting each other with their saliva. It would be better for them to forget each other in the rivers and lakes. Quite thought-provoking. Yang Shu seemed lost in thought. This humble consort believes that, since they are already stranded on land, forgetting each other is not as good as helping each other. I was slightly taken aback, not expecting her to interpret it this way. Perhaps, I said calmly, Yen Shuang, escort Lady Wn back. In mid-October, the Emperor held an archery and riding competition for the princes in the Imperial Garden. Changye, at 10 years old, had already surpassed the other princes in riding and archery under my deliberate training. I didn't hope for him to ascend to the throne, only that he could protect himself no matter what might happen in the future. Mother, I'm nervous, Changye whispered, holding my hand before we set off. I knelt down to straighten his collar. Remember what Mother said, just do your best, don't worry about winning or losing. At the competition site, the princes took their turns one by one. The third prince, born to the late consort Hui, was already 9 years old and excelled in archery. The fourth prince, born to consort Liu, though only 6, performed admirably with the help of his attendants. When it was Changye's turn, his first arrow missed the mark, and some people around snickered. I nervously clenched my handkerchief, but saw Changye take a deep breath and knock another arrow, the third arrow, the fourth arrow. Changye shot better and better, earning a round of applause. All right, the Emperor rarely smiled, but now he did, as expected of my son, Li Dequan. Grant the little golden bow to the crown prince. Changye ran over excitedly. Mother, did you see, your son won? I patted his head. Mother saw it. Changye, you were amazing. Father praised me. His eyes sparkled. He said I'm just like he was when he was little. My heart warmed. In this life, at least they had more time together as father and son, allowing Changye to feel more paternal love. Virtuous consort. I don't know when the Emperor walked to my side. Changye's horsemanship and archery, you've put your heart into it. I bowed and said, Your Majesty, it is the tutors who have taught well. I merely offer occasional supervision, no need to be modest. The Emperor looked at Changye, who was showing off his small golden bow to the eunuchs in the distance. This child is naturally gifted and diligent. He will surely achieve great things in the future. I lowered my head to hide the complex emotions in my eyes. Your Majesty flatters me. I have decided, the Emperor suddenly said, starting tomorrow, let Changye come to the Hall of Diligent Governance for an hour every day after his studies. I will personally instruct him in state affairs. My heart jolted. This was something that had never happened in my previous life. As the eldest son, if Changye could receive the Emperor's personal guidance, in the future, I, on behalf of Changye, thank Your Majesty for your grace, I said calmly, suppressing the excitement within me. The Emperor gave me a meaningful look. Virtuous consort, you are always so restrained. With that, he turned and left, leaving me standing there with my emotions in turmoil. When the first snow of November fell, Duaning sent someone to invite me to the Phoenix Palace. I thought she was feeling unwell again, but to my surprise, as soon as I entered, I saw her looking quite well, arranging flowers in the warm chamber. "Little sister is here," she greeted me with a smile. "Come quickly and try the Nula Tribute Longjing tea." I bowed and sat down opposite her. "Sister, you look very well today." Once I figured some things out, I naturally felt better. Duaning personally poured tea for me. "Speaking of which, I must thank you, sister, for your guidance that day." I was somewhat surprised. I didn't say anything, precisely because you said nothing. Duanin's gaze was clear and calm. "That day when I woke up and saw you by my bedside, there was no pity or mockery in your eyes, just tranquility." In that moment, I suddenly realized that one could live like this even in the harem. I sipped my tea in silence, unsure how to respond. "I've been thinking a lot these days." Duanin continued, "After marrying the emperor, I tied everything about myself to him. When he loved me, I felt like the happiest person in the world. When he grew distant, I felt as if I had fallen into hell." She gently stroked a white chrysanthemum. "Until I saw you, Nianqing. Do you know, I actually started to envy you." "Envy me?" I nearly choked on my tea. "Envy your carefree spirit," Duaning said sincerely. "You have your own world, Changye, poetry, books, flowers, and plants. All of these can bring you joy." I set down the teacup, my heart a tumult of mixed emotions. In my past life, Duaning had been my enemy until her dying breath, and now, she actually sees me as a role model. I said softly, "You flatter me, sister." Duaning shook her head. "There's no need for modesty. I invited you here today to tell you that I've decided to reclaim the dignity befitting an empress. No longer will I wallow in self-pity over the emperor's neglect, nor envy Yang Sh. I want to learn to live like you." Looking into her resolute eyes, I felt a sudden surge of emotion. Perhaps Duaning had always been this clear-sighted at her core. It was the palace intrigues that had twisted her true nature. "It is truly a blessing for the imperial harem that you think this way, sister," I said sincerely. Duaning smiled. "By the way, I heard that Cheng Yi has been frequenting the Hall of Diligent Governance lately." "Yes. His Majesty is personally instructing him in state affairs." "This is a good thing." Duaning nodded. "Cheng Yi is intelligent and kind-hearted. He will surely achieve great things in the future. Rest assured, I will do everything in my power to protect him." My eyes grew slightly warm. "I thank you for your kindness." "Sister, the 15th day of the first lunar month, the Lantern Festival, I had just returned from paying respects at the Empress Dowager's palace when Yanxuang came to report. "Your Highness, Lady WN is here, and she has brought many gifts." I frowned slightly. Since the last incident, Yang Shu had been visiting Jiaohua Palace more frequently, always with some excuse either to seek advice on poetry and literature or to present embroidery patterns. Today, on the Lantern Festival, she had come with lavish gifts. "Please invite her to the warm chamber." I took off my cloak and changed into a simple, everyday gown. "Your humble consort pays respects to the noble consort." Yang Shu curtsied with a smile as bright as the spring sun. "On this Lantern Festival, I've come especially to pay my respects to you. My lady, you are too kind, fair beauty." I gestured for her to sit down. "It's such a festive occasion, why aren't you preparing a banquet in your own palace?" Yang Shu had a maid present an embroidered box. I made some yuanxiao by hand, thinking your highness might enjoy them. She opened the box to reveal 6 crystal-clear glutinous rice balls. "This is a Jiangnan-style recipe, thin skin, generous filling, made with lotus root starch for a light, non-greasy texture." I was somewhat surprised. In my past life, I had also tasted this kind of yuanxiao. Yang Shu had specially made them for the emperor to try. I never expected that in this life she would offer them to me first. "Lady WN has gone to great trouble. I had Yanxuang accept it. Changye will surely like it." "How has the crown prince been lately?" Yang Shu asked with concern. "I heard the emperor often summons him to the Hall of Diligent Governance." I picked up the teacup, taking the opportunity to observe her expression. "It's fine. Just some basic lessons." Yang Shu nodded gently. "The eldest prince is exceptionally bright. He will surely achieve great things in the future." She paused, then suddenly lowered her voice. "Your Highness, I came today with a favor to ask." Finally getting to the main point, I set down the teacup. "Speak freely." "I have been in the palace for nearly a year. Though favored by His Majesty, I still tread on thin ice within the harem." Yang Shu looked directly into my eyes. "I wish to ask your highness for protection." I raised an eyebrow. "Beauty WN is currently in His Majesty's good graces. Why would you need my protection? Imperial favor flows like water, it comes today and goes tomorrow." Yang Shu smiled bitterly. "I know all too well that without a solid foundation, Any amount of favor is like a castle in the air. She took a deep breath. Your Highness has the Empress Dowager's trust and the support of the eldest prince. If I could receive your guidance, I would be endlessly grateful. I did not answer immediately. In my past life, Yang Shu relied on her own intelligence to secure her place in the harem and never bowed to anyone. Yet in this life, she was actively seeking my protection. What do you want? I asked directly, ally. Yang Shu was equally direct. In this imperial harem, I need someone I can trust, and your Highness needs someone who can speak before the emperor. We each have our own needs. I quietly watched her for a moment, then suddenly smiled. Consort WN is indeed clever, but why do you think I need you? Because of the crown prince. Yang Shu did not hesitate. Your Highness lives a secluded life and avoids conflict, but as the eldest prince grows older, he will inevitably be drawn into the struggle for the throne. Though I am of little talent, I still have some influence to speak a few words before the emperor. My heart trembled. She saw it all so clearly. It was true I could disregard favor and status, but Changye's future, I could not ignore it. You are quite bold, I said coldly, daring to recklessly discuss matters of the throne. Yang Shu remained composed. I dare not, it's just preparing for a rainy day. She took out a small booklet from her sleeve. This is a compilation of historical records about the establishment of crown princes from previous dynasties that I've organized. It might be useful for you, Your Highness. I took the booklet and flipped through a few pages casually, inwardly startled. It detailed the processes of various princes vying for the throne in previous dynasties, as well as how the current emperor ultimately prevailed. The thoroughness of the information and the depth of analysis were certainly not something that could be accomplished overnight. How long have you been preparing this? Yang Shu smiled. Since the day I entered the palace, I am accustomed to understanding the rules before placing a bet. I closed the booklet and looked at her deeply. What do you want in return? Your trust, and your assistance at critical moments, Yang Shu said sincerely. I ask for nothing else. The warm chamber fell into a moment of silence. The fire crackled in the hearth, while outside the window, the faint clamor of palace servants preparing for the lantern festival could be heard. Okay, finally, I nodded. But let me be clear, I will not do anything that harms heaven and reason. A flicker of delight passed through Yan Shu's eyes. Your Highness need not worry. This concubine feels the same, and so, we reached a delicate agreement. No vows, no contracts, only a mutually understood exchange of interests. Early February, the spring chill was still biting. That day, Changye returned from the Hall of Diligent Governance. Unusually quiet and withdrawn. At dinner, he only picked at his food a few times before putting down his chopsticks and saying he was full. What's wrong? I touched his forehead. Are you feeling unwell? Changye shook his head, hesitated for a moment, and suddenly asked, Mother, why can't I be the crown prince? The chopsticks in my hand nearly slipped. Who told you this? Today, while I was reading in the side hall of the Hall of Diligent Governance, I overheard the Grand Tutor speaking with Father. Changye whispered. They said that the crown prince should be appointed early to secure the state. They also said, although I am the eldest son, but what? I struggled to suppress the storm raging in my heart, but the birth mother's background is not sufficient. Changye looked at me. Mother, what does this mean? Why does whether I can become the crown prince have anything to do with you? A sharp pain pierced my chest. In my previous life, Changye died young and never experienced these harsh realities of the palace. Now, how should I explain to an 11-year-old child that his fate is closely tied to his mother's background? Changye. I pulled him to sit by the window. Do you know about bees? I do. The Grand Tutor said bees have a queen, worker bees, and drones. Right, I explained softly. The queen bee is born a queen, not because she's smarter or braver than the others, but simply because she was born that way. The human world is sometimes like that too. Some people, because of their birth, are destined to bear greater responsibilities. Changye seemed to understand but not fully. So, because my mother isn't the empress, I can't be the crown prince. Not necessarily. I stroked his hair. In history, there have been many wise rulers whose birth mothers were not empresses. What matters is, I cupped his little face. No matter what happens in the future, you must be an upright and kind person. Do you understand? Changye nodded and asked again. Then, does father prefer third brother? My heart tightened. The third prince, the one who ultimately ascended the throne in my past life, was only 10 years old now, yet he was already being considered by the court officials as a candidate for the crown prince. Father treats all his children with equal love. I forced a smile and said, all right, these matters aren't for you to worry about. You still have school tomorrow, so rest early. After lulling Changye to sleep, I stood alone in the courtyard, gazing at the star-filled sky, my thoughts in turmoil. In my previous life, I resorted to any means to vie for the Empress' favor and a noble status, ultimately harming others and myself. In this life, I had intended to keep to myself and also keep Changye away from these conflicts, but now it seems, the tree may crave calm, but the wind will not subside. By the end of February, the weather was gradually warming. On this day, when I went to the Funning Palace to pay my respects, the Empress Dowager mentioned, "The Emperor recently inquired about your relationship with Lady WN. My teacup paused in my hand. What did the Emperor say? He said you've always kept to yourself, but recently you've been quite close to Lady WN, and asked if I knew the reason." The Empress Dowager looked at me meaningfully. I set down my teacup. "Your servant and Lady WN merely discuss poetry and literature occasionally, with no deep connection. That may fool others, but it won't fool the Emperor." The Empress Dowager shook her head. "He is by nature suspicious. You have the eldest prince, and now you befriend his favorite consort. How could he not be suspicious?" I was inwardly startled. Indeed, given the Emperor's temperament, he would surely suspect that my approach to Yang Shu had ulterior motives. I was careless. "Your Majesty," I said softly, "please enlighten me, Empress Dowager. The Emperor detests any collusion between the inner palace and the court." The Empress Dowager said slowly, "If he suspects that you befriend Lady WN for the sake of Changye's future," a chill ran down my spine. This was indeed the true purpose of my alliance with Yang Shu. "I understand, Your Majesty," I said solemnly. "I will proceed with caution." In early April, an explosive piece of news spread throughout the imperial harem. Consort Li's father, Pei Zhenyu, had achieved a great victory in the northwest, annihilating 30,000 enemy troops and capturing their chieftain. This meant that Consort Li's backing had become even more secure, and it also meant she would regain her influence. "Your Highness, I heard His Majesty is overjoyed and intends to promote Consort Li in rank," Yan Shuang said with concern. I calmly trimmed an orchid plant, my expression serene, as expected. "But, Consort Li has always seen you as a thorn in her side." "It's fine," I set down the scissors. "Go and invite Lady WN." When Yang Shu arrived, her expression was also grim. "Your Highness has heard. General Pei has achieved a great merit." I poured her a cup of tea. "What are your plans?" Yang Shu pondered for a moment. "The Pei family is powerful. It's not wise to confront them head-on for now. I plan to temporarily avoid their wise." I nodded. "After Consort Li regains favor, the first one she will target is definitely you. In the coming days, try to go out less. And carefully check your food and clothing." Yang Shu looked at me gratefully. "Thank you for your advice, Your Highness." She hesitated for a moment. "There is one more thing. I haven't told His Majesty yet." "What is it?" "I might be with child." My teacup trembled in my hand. "Are you certain?" "Not yet. My monthly cycle is half a month late, and I've been feeling nauseous lately." Yang Shu gently touched her abdomen. "I wish to wait until it's confirmed before announcing." I pondered for a moment. "Keep it quiet for now. If Consort Li finds out you're pregnant, she will surely become even more frantic." Yang Shu nodded. "I understand." I looked at her still flat stomach. My heart filled with indescribable complexity. In my past life, Yang Shu had also been pregnant. But in the end, if history repeats itself, should I intervene or stand by? "Lady WN," I said solemnly, "from today onward, your daily meals will be specially prepared by my orders. Your clothing and necessities will also be provided from my quarters first." A flicker of emotion passed through Yan Shu's eyes. "Your Highness, say no more," I interrupted her. "Just think of it as, for our promise." After seeing Yang Shu off, I stood by the window in silence for a long time. Consort Li regained favor, Yang Shu became pregnant, and voices advocating for the establishment of a crown prince grew louder in the court. This series of changes would completely reshape the dynamics of the imperial harem, and I, who should have been a detached observer in this second life, was already deeply entangled in it. "Yan Shuang," I softly instructed, "go to the storeroom and fetch that set of silver needles. Also, from today onward, all food and drink in Jiaohua Palace must be carefully inspected." The 5th day of the 5th month. The Dragon Boat Festival, a banquet was held in the palace to celebrate. I originally didn't want Changye to attend, but the Emperor specifically decreed that all princes must be present. Before leaving, I repeatedly reminded Changye, "Remember, only eat the food brought from Jiaohua Palace. Politely decline anything offered by others. Your son remembers." Changye nodded obediently. "Mother has said it many times." I straightened his collar for him, my unease growing stronger by the minute. At the banquet, Yang Shu wore loose palace attire, not yet showing signs of pregnancy, but her face was rosy, and her eyes shimmered with a maternal softness. Consort Li attended in full regalia, her hair adorned with jewels that glittered brightly under the sunlight. She repeatedly toasted the emperor, her words brimming with pride. The emperor, owing to her father's military achievements, treated her with exceptional leniency. Halfway through the banquet, a young palace maid accidentally spilled a cup of wine on Yang Shu. As Yang Shu rose to change her clothes, I noticed Consort Li giving a meaningful glance to her personal maid. "Yanqiu," I whispered, "follow her quietly and see what happens. Don't alert anyone." Yanqiu slipped away from the banquet unnoticed. Shortly after, she hurried back and whispered in my ear, "Your Highness, something is wrong. Someone has lit musk incense in the side hall where Lady WN is changing." The chopsticks in my hand nearly snapped. Musk, in her previous life, Yang Shu's first child was harmed by musk. "Where is Lady WN?" This servant reminded her in time, so she did not enter that room. But, Yanqiu lowered her voice even further, "That palace maid accidentally let it slip. And now the entire banquet knows that Lady WN is with child." My heart sank. The news of Yanqiu's pregnancy was forced into the open, and at the very moment when Consort Li was at her most triumphant. As expected, the emperor was overjoyed upon hearing the news and immediately promoted Yang Shu to the rank of WNGU, bestowing countless rewards upon her. Consort Li forced a smile, but the venom in her eyes was impossible to conceal. After the banquet ended, I managed to evade prying eyes and met Yang Shu for a secret talk behind the rockery in the Imperial Garden. Today's incident was no accident. Yang Shu's face turned pale. There must be spies planted by Consort Li among my attendants. "Your personal maid, Fuling," I stated bluntly. "She is Consort Li's agent." Yang Shu looked at me in shock. "How does your Highness know this?" "Intuition." I brushed it off lightly. "The urgent matter now is to clear the people around you. From today onward, all your meals and clothing will be personally arranged by me." Yang Shu gratefully grasped my hand. "Your Highness's great kindness. This concubine will never forget it for the rest of her life." "No need to thank me," I patted her hand. "Remember, from now on, you are ill, except for paying daily respects to the Empress, feign illness and avoid appearing at all other times. As for the Emperor, you'll have to find a way yourself." Yang Shu nodded in understanding. This concubine understands. After returning to the palace, I immediately ordered someone to prepare a set of silver needles and several detoxifying herbs, planning to send them to Yang Shu the next day. Yen Shuang stood nearby, hesitating to speak. "Say what's on your mind," I said without looking up. "Your Majesty." Yen Shuang hesitated and said, "Why are you so concerned about Consort WN? If it's for the sake of the eldest prince, there's no need." "Yen Shuang," I interrupted her, "some things don't need a reason. Just as I harmed people without reason in my past life, in this life, I want to save people without reason either." On the 7th day of the 5th month, the nightmare descended. I was writing when Yanqiu rushed in frantically. "Your Highness, the Crown Prince has fainted in the study." My vision went dark. In my past life, Chengye died young. Could it be that even after being reborn, I still couldn't change this fate? Summon the Imperial Physician. My voice was hoarse. Send word to the Hall of Diligent Governance. When I rushed to the study, Chengye had already been moved to the side hall, lying pale on the couch with bluish lips. Grand Tutor Zhong was anxiously pacing around. "What's going on?" I threw myself before the couch, grasping Chengye's icy little hand, reporting to Consort Xian. Grand Tutor Zhong's voice trembled. "The Crown Prince was fine just moments ago, then suddenly complained of dizziness, and then he collapsed." I felt Chengye's pulse. It was faint and weak, intermittent. This was clearly a sign of poisoning. "What did he eat today?" I demanded sharply. He only drank the tea provided in the study." I grabbed the teacup on the table and brought it close to smell a faint, bitter almond scent. Yes, it was arsenic, the same poison Consort Li used to kill Consort Liu in my past life. "Go quickly and prepare the mung bean and licorice soup," I shouted at Yanqiu. "Then fetch the white jade bottle from the bottom layer of my dressing case." By the time the Imperial Physician arrived, I had already given Chengye the detoxification pills I had prepared myself. I had secretly made these after my rebirth, just to guard against this day. "Your Highness, this..." The Imperial Physician hesitated upon seeing that I had administered medicine without authorization. "It's arsenic," I said directly. "The dosage isn't large, but Chengye is too young to withstand it. Quickly apply the acupuncture needles." The Imperial Physician was surprised by my judgment, but the situation was urgent, and he immediately began applying needles to treat him. By the time the emperor arrived upon hearing the news, Changye had just vomited a mouthful of black blood, and his breathing gradually stabilized. What happened? The emperor asked, his face ashen. The imperial physician knelt down. Your Majesty, the crown prince has been poisoned. Thanks to the virtuous consort's timely discovery and the use of the right medicine, his life was saved. The emperor's gaze turned to me, a flicker of surprise in his eyes. I had no time to explain, only holding Cheng Yi's hand tightly, afraid that if I let go, he would disappear. Investigate. The emperor said sternly, investigate thoroughly for me. After Changye was out of danger, I instructed Yen Qiu and Yen Shuang to guard him closely without leaving his side. While I headed straight to the Crimson Cloud Palace, Consort Li was admiring the flowers and feigned surprise when she saw me barging in. Oh, what brings you here, Sister Virtuous Consort? It was you who poisoned him. I cut her off directly, my voice as cold as ice. Consort Li's smile remained unchanged. Sister, what do you mean by that? I am also deeply saddened by the Crown Prince's poisoning. A young eunuch from the Crimson Cloud Palace added arsenic to the tea. I took a step forward. Consort Li, do you dare to act but not take responsibility? Consort Li narrowed her eyes and waved for all the palace attendants to withdraw. When only the two of us remained in the hall, the fake smile on her face vanished instantly. So what if I did it? Do you have any proof? I clenched my hands tightly, my nails digging deep into my palms. In my past life, I would have retaliated without hesitation using even more vicious means, but now. I looked at Consort Li's smug face and suddenly calmed down. No evidence, I said calmly, but I warn you, Consort Li, if anything happens to Changye again, I guarantee the Pei family will be buried with you. Consort Li laughed heartily. You, my father is a high-ranking official in the court, with illustrious military achievements, even the emperor gives him some respect. Who do you think you are? Your father's achievements have overshadowed the sovereign, I said softly. Do you think? The emperor truly holds no grudge in his heart. Consort Li's expression shifted slightly. How dare you sow discord? I don't need to sow discord. I turned and walked toward the palace gate. We just have to wait and see how long the Pei family can maintain their glory. Leaving the Crimson Cloud Palace, my legs felt weak, and I had to lean against the palace wall to steady myself. Anger and lingering fear surged over me like a tidal wave, nearly overwhelming me. I almost lost Changye again. Your Majesty, Yen Qiu hurried over. The Crown Prince has woken up and is insisting on seeing you. I took a deep breath, barely managing to calm my emotions, returned to the palace. Inside the Hall of Diligent Governance, the atmosphere was as heavy as iron. The emperor sat high on the dragon throne, his face so dark it seemed to drip with gloom. I knelt below, listening as Li Dequan reported the findings of the investigation. Arsenic was indeed detected in the tea. It has been verified that the young eunuch responsible for serving the tea that day was transferred to the imperial study just 2 months ago and is from the same hometown as the chief eunuch of Jiangyun Palace. And what else? The emperor asked coldly. That young eunuch drowned himself in a well last night. The emperor suddenly slammed the table and rose to his feet. What a perfect case of no evidence from the dead. I knelt quietly, sneering inwardly. Consort Li certainly handled things cleanly and efficiently, cutting off the trail at just the right moment. Noble consort, the emperor suddenly asked me, how did you recognize it as arsenic at a glance? I was prepared. When I was young, I once saw a servant in my household accidentally consume arsenic, and the symptoms were similar to Changye's. Over the years, in my spare time, I've read some medical books, so I recognized it. The emperor stared at me for a long time, as if judging the truth of my words. Finally, he nodded. This time, it's all thanks to you. He turned to Li Dequan. Consort Li has failed to manage her subordinates strictly, leading to the harm of the imperial prince. She is to be fined half a year's salary and placed under house arrest for 3 months. Is that all? My heart turned cold. My son nearly lost his life, and the culprit only receives such a light punishment. Your Majesty, I couldn't help but look up. Changye, I know. The emperor interrupted me, but her father has just rendered great service, and the court is in need of capable individuals at this time. I lowered my eyes and fell silent. Indeed, in the heart of an emperor, how could a son's life compare to the stability of the realm? In my past life, I failed to see this. But in this life, I understand it all too clearly. Virtuous consort, the emperor's voice softened. I will dispatch more guards to protect Changye. Additionally, for your meritorious service in saving him, you are promoted to noble consort. Noble consort, I nearly laughed out loud, using a title to compensate for the pain of losing a child. Is this what the emperor calls his favor? Your servant, thanks your majesty for your grace, I kowtowed mechanically, my heart now devoid of any emotion. The edict promoting me to noble consort spread throughout the harem, yet I felt no joy, although Chungye had survived the danger. His body was weak and required long-term recuperation. I stayed by his bedside day and night, personally brewing medicine and feeding him, fearing the slightest mishap. Mother, I am fine now, Chungye smiled weakly. Please don't cry. Only then did I realize my tears had fallen on his face. I quickly wiped them away. I wasn't crying, it's just, something got in my eyes. On the 5th day, Duaning suddenly arrived at Jiaohua Palace. Sister, she looked at my haggard face. Her eyes filled with heartache. You've had a hard time these past few days. I forced a smile. Thank you for your concern, sister. Chungye is much better now. Duaning dismissed her attendants, personally checked on Chungye's condition, then led me to the outer room. I know who poisoned him. I looked up sharply. Does my sister have evidence? No, Duaning smiled bitterly. But I am not a fool. Consort Li has always seen Chungye as a thorn in her side, and now that Lady Wn is pregnant, she is even more anxious. I remained silent. Duaning continued, I have ordered that from now on, all the prince's meals will be handled by designated personnel, and each dish must be tested for poison. Additionally, she lowered her voice, I have also assigned more people to keep an eye on Consort Wn. I looked at her in surprise. In the previous life, Duaning was indecisive and never dared to confront Consort Li directly. How could she be so resolute and decisive in this life? Sister, why? Because I am the Empress. Duaning's eyes flashed with determination. Protecting the imperial heir is my duty. Besides, she took my hand. I've watched Chungye grow up since he was a child. My heart warmed, and I nearly shed tears. In our past life, we fought to the death, yet in this life we stand together for a common goal. Fate truly works in mysterious ways. Thank you, sister, I said sincerely. Duaning shook her head. There's no need for thanks. I have already requested an imperial decree for Chengyi to move to the side hall of Fengyi Palace for a period of time after he recovers. It's close to the Hall of Diligent Governance, so the emperor can visit him often, and it's safer there. I understood her intention. Fengyi Palace is the residence of the Empress. Even the arrogant consort Li wouldn't dare to cause trouble there. I don't know how to thank you, sister. Take good care of Chungye, Duaning said gently. He is a good child, and in the future, he will surely achieve great things. Her words carried a hidden meaning, and I understood it in my heart. In early June, as Chungye's health gradually improved, he moved to the side hall of Fengyi Palace. When Yang Shu paid a secret visit, I was tidying up Chungye's clothes. Your Highness. After paying her respects, she asked with concern, has the Crown Prince fully recovered? Much better. I gestured for her to sit down. Thanks to Her Majesty the Queen's care. Yang Shu nodded. Her Majesty has been especially kind to me lately as well. She gently touched her abdomen. If this child can be born safely, we will never forget the great kindness of the Queen and Your Highness. I looked at her still flat stomach, my heart filled with mixed emotions. In my past life, Yang Shu's first child did not survive. In this life, can I change that outcome? Consort Li will not let this rest easily. I spoke frankly. You are now with child, so you must be even more careful. This concubine understands. A flicker of determination passed through Yenshu's eyes. This time, with the Crown Prince being poisoned, I have seen even more clearly how vicious Consort Li is. Your Highness, rest assured, this concubine will never repeat the same mistakes. I pondered for a moment, then took a small box from the cabinet. Here are some pills to stabilize the pregnancy, made by my own hands. Take one every 3 days to strengthen the fetal energy and ward off common toxins. Yang Shu received it solemnly. Your Highness is even skilled in medicine. Just a superficial understanding, I said lightly. Remember, aside from what the Empress and I give you, do not eat anything offered by anyone else. I shall remember, Your Majesty. After seeing Yang Shu off, I stood by the window in silence for a long time. At the beginning of my rebirth, I only wished to stay away from the strife and protect Chengye. Yet now, without realizing it, I have become deeply entangled, forming an alliance with Yang Shu and Duaning to stand against Consort Li. Fate is truly wondrous. Enemies from my past life have become allies in this one. Former obsessions have transformed into present-day guardianship. Perhaps this is the true meaning of rebirth, not only changing the outcome, but also changing oneself. In early July, a memorial from the northwest shook the entire imperial court. How dare Pei Zhenyu use the phrase diligent from dawn to dusk to describe his own merits? The Empress Dowager slammed her teacup heavily on the table, sneering repeatedly. His comparing himself to Zhuge Liang. I sat quietly in the lower seat, gently massaging the Empress Dowager's shoulders, in my past life. This scene had also occurred. Pei Zhenyu's memorial, arrogant about his achievements, marked the beginning of the Pei family's decline. What was the Emperor's reaction? The Empress Dowager asked Aunt Sueha beside her. His Majesty was furious and tore up the memorial in court, Aunt Sueha said in a low voice. An edict has been issued to reprimand Pei Zhenyu, summoning him back to the capital to report on his duties. The Empress Dowager gave me a meaningful glance. Nianqing, what do you think? I continued with my task without pausing. Your servant is foolish and does not understand state affairs. It's just, those whose achievements overshadow their sovereign have rarely met a good end since ancient times. The Empress Dowager nodded with satisfaction. You do see things clearly. She patted my hand. How has Consort Li been lately? She has been much more subdued since being confined, I answered truthfully, however. But what? I have heard that she secretly sent someone to deliver a letter to the northwest. A glint of sharpness flashed in the Empress Dowager's eyes. Is the information reliable? It was Consort Wn who told me, I said softly. She has spies planted in Consort Li's palace, and in turn, she has placed her own people in Jiangyun Palace. The Empress Dowager chuckled lightly. This Consort Wn, she certainly has her methods. After a moment of thought, she said. Have her continue to keep watch and report to me immediately if there is any movement. I understand, Your Majesty. As I left the Funning Palace, I saw Li Dequan from a distance leading several young eunuchs hurriedly heading toward the Hall of Diligent Governance, carrying a stack of memorials in their hands. Judging by the thickness, there must have been quite a few memorials impeaching Pei Zhenyu in today's court session. Returning to the Jiaohua Palace, Chengye was studying. Since the poisoning incident, he had lost a lot of weight, but his gaze had become more resolute. Mother, he put down the book and came forward. How is the Empress Dowager's health? The Empress Dowager is well, and she asked about you. I patted his head. How are your studies? Grand Tutor Zhong says I have made great progress. Chengye's eyes sparkled. Today, Father came to the study and praised my essay. My heart warmed. By the way, Chengye suddenly lowered his voice. I overheard Father and Lord Zhong talking. It seems they are going to deal with General Pei. My heart skipped a beat. What else did you hear? They said General Pei is arrogant and doesn't respect His Majesty. Chengye asked in confusion. Mother, didn't General Pei achieve many military successes? Why isn't Father pleased? After a moment of thought, I said softly. Chengye, remember your mother's words. As a subject, no matter how great your achievements, you remain a subject. Forgetting your place is the path to disaster. Chengye nodded obediently. In mid-July, Yang Shu suddenly paid a secret visit. Your Highness, her face was pale. Something has happened. I dismissed the attendants. Speak slowly. The day before yesterday, Physician Zhu took my pulse and said, I might be carrying twins. Yang Shu's voice trembled. In the royal family, this is considered an ominous sign. If word gets out, my heart jolted. In her previous life, Yang Shu's first child had miscarried due to musk, so she had never faced this dilemma. Twins were indeed considered ominous in the royal family, at best, losing favor. At worst, I dared not think further. Is Imperial Physician Zhu reliable? He is my confidant and has kept it secret for now. Yang Shu bit her lip. But it won't be possible to hide it once the pregnancy advances. I pondered for a moment. There are two options. One is to use medicine to let one fetus naturally wither, preserving one healthy child. The other is to find a way to deceive everyone and make arrangements only when the time of delivery comes. Yang Shu's eyes welled up with tears. This concubine cannot bear to part with either one. I understood her feelings. In my past life, though I never truly loved the Emperor, my maternal love for Chengye was real. No one understands a mother's feelings for her unborn child better than I do. Then choose the second path, I said decisively. From today onward, wear loose clothing. I will prepare some medicinal meals to control the baby's size, so your belly won't look as big as if you were carrying twins. Yang Shu gratefully grasped my hand. Your Highness, such great kindness. Don't thank me just yet, I said seriously. This path is very risky, if discovered. It would be the crime of deceiving the Emperor. I understand, Your Majesty, Yang Shu said firmly. For the child, I am willing to take the risk. I nodded. Also, reliable personnel must be arranged for the delivery. I will be there personally. Your Highness. Yang Shu looked at me in shock. This is too dangerous. If something goes wrong, you will also be implicated. I chuckled lightly. Don't worry, I have experience. Although I never gave birth to twins in my past life, I've seen plenty of difficult deliveries. Now, let me check your pulse. Yang Shu obediently extended her wrist. After a careful examination, I found her pulse to be smooth and strong, indeed indicating twins, but her qi and blood were slightly weak. You need to nourish your qi and blood, but not too much, to avoid the babies growing too large. Remember, aside from Dr. Ju and me, don't let a third person know the truth, not even the Emperor or the Empress. Yang Shu bowed deeply. This concubine has taken note. At the end of July, the Emperor suddenly arrived at Jiaohua Palace. Your Majesty, may you be blessed. I bowed in surprise. Since being promoted to noble consort, the Emperor had actually visited even less. Perhaps he felt he had already rewarded me enough. Rise. The Emperor seemed to be in a good mood. Where is Changye? He's studying in the study, I replied. Shall I summon him back? The Emperor waved his hand. No need, I came to find you. He sat down. Taking the tea offered by the palace maid, I recently read Changye's essays, quite insightful, especially the suggestions on managing the Yellow River. Even the Grand Tutor praised them. Your Majesty flatters me, I said modestly. Changye is merely discussing theories on paper. No, he has talent. The Emperor's eyes gleamed with an unusual light. I intend to let him begin handling some simple state affairs. My heart jolted. In my past life, Changye naturally never had this opportunity. And now, the Emperor was actually proposing to let Changye participate in court politics. Was this a blessing or a curse? Your Majesty, Changye is only 11 years old. The Emperor disagreed. He is my eldest son, and should take on great responsibilities early. I remained silent for a moment, then said softly, I only wish for Changye to grow up safely. The Emperor frowned. Noble consort, you have always been perceptive. Why are you so confused about this matter? If Changye remains an idle prince, how will he fare when the new Emperor ascends the throne? My heart tightened. The Emperor's words clearly implied he had considered the possibility of making Changye the crown prince. I'm just worried that he's too young to bear all this. With me here, what are you afraid of? The Emperor softened his voice. A rare occurrence. I will personally guide him. You just need to be a good mother to him. I lowered my head in agreement. But my heart was filled with mixed emotions. If Changye were to be drawn into the struggle for the throne, his future path would undoubtedly be fraught with danger. Yet, if we overprotect him, I fear he might lose the ability to defend himself. After the Emperor left, I immediately sent someone to summon Changye back. Mother, Changye rushed in excitedly. Your son composed a poem today, and father praised it several times. I pulled him to sit down. Changye, your mother has something to ask you. If father allows you to start learning how to handle court affairs, would you be willing? Changye's eyes lit up. Really, your son is willing. Do you know what this means? I asked seriously. It will be very hard, and also, very dangerous. Your son knows. Changye was unexpectedly mature. The Grand Tutor once said, when heaven is about to confer a great responsibility on any man, it will first exercise his mind with suffering. Your son is not afraid of hardship. He hesitated for a moment. Is mother worried? Like last time, my heart ached, and I pulled him into my arms. Mother just wants you to be safe and happy. I understand, mother. Changye leaned against me. But I also want to be like father, to serve the country and the people, to achieve great things. I looked into his determined eyes and suddenly realized my child has grown up, no longer the little one who needed my protection at every turn, but a young man with his own aspirations. Okay, I gently kissed his forehead. Since you've made your decision, your mother supports you, but promise me, no matter what difficulties you encounter, you will tell me. All right, Changye nodded firmly. I promise, mother. In early August, Pei Zhenyu was summoned back to the capital. When the news arrived, I was playing chess with the Empress Dowager. Pei Zhenyu knelt outside the Chenyuan gate for 2 hours yesterday. And the Emperor refused to see him, the Empress Dowager said lightly as she placed a piece. I feigned surprise. Is His Majesty that angry? Not only that, the Empress Dowager sneered, someone has already impeached Pei Zhenyu for embezzling military funds and forming cliques for personal gain. The Emperor has ordered Prince Rui to investigate thoroughly. My heart skipped a beat. In my past life, the downfall of the Pei family began with these very charges. Does Consort Li know? I know naturally, the Empress Dowager said meaningfully. I've heard that the porcelain palace has been changing its porcelain frequently these past few days. I remained silent. No matter how arrogant Consort Li is, she merely relies on the power of the Pei family. If the Pei family falls, her end is not far off. Nian Qing, the Empress Dowager suddenly asked, if Consort Li falls from power, who do you think is most suitable to take over the management of the 6 palaces? I paused the chess piece in my hand. Naturally, It should be Her Majesty the Empress. Duan Ning is too soft-natured. The Empress Dowager shook her head. If it weren't for your support behind the scenes all these years, she would have long been suffocated by Consort Li. My heart skipped a beat. Is the Empress Dowager hinting that I should take over the management of the 6 palaces? Your servant is of limited talent and shallow learning. Enough. The Empress Dowager cut me off. I know your ambitions lie elsewhere, however. She looked at me with deep meaning. Some responsibilities are not something you can avoid just because you want to. As I left the Palace of Blessing and Peace, my thoughts were in turmoil. The Empress Dowager was right. As Changye gained increasing importance, it was no longer possible for me to remain completely detached. Since I couldn't avoid it, perhaps I should take the initiative. On my way back to the palace, I accidentally ran into Yang Shu, who had just come out of the Hall of Diligent Governance. I pay my respects to the noble consort. She performed the ritual salute, yet an unusual glimmer shone in her eyes. There is no need for such formality, Lady Wn. I feigned indifference. How fares His Majesty? The Emperor has just finished reviewing the memorials and has retired to rest. Yang Shu lowered her voice. Your Highness, urgent news. The Emperor has just issued an edict, stripping Pei Zhenyu of his position as General of the Nation and demoting him to General of Jiangning. My heart skipped a beat. This is happening even sooner than in my previous life. It seems the Emperor's patience with Pei Zhenyu has reached its limit. Does Consort Li know yet? She probably doesn't know yet. A flicker of cunning flashed in Yang Shu's eyes. This concubine has already arranged for someone to ensure that when Consort Li finds out, there will be quite a show. I gave her a warning look. Don't go too far, your servant understands. Yang Shu replied obediently, but the glint in her eyes told me she already had a plan. On the 15th day of the 8th month, the Mid-Autumn Festival, a banquet was held in the palace to celebrate. But Consort Li did not attend, claiming illness. Since the news of Pei Zhenyu's demotion arrived, she had secluded herself, and the Crimson Cloud Palace was shrouded in gloom. At the banquet, Empress Duaning looked in excellent spirits and handled the event with ease. Yang Shu also did not attend due to unstable pregnancy signs, which actually eased my worries a little. After the banquet ended, Duaning specifically asked me to stay, saying, "Sister, accompany me for a walk." The moonlight was like water, spilling over the gravel path in the Imperial Garden. Duaning dismissed her attendants and walked side by side with me. Nian Qing, she suddenly called me by my name. Thank you for all these years. I looked at her in surprise. Sister, why do you say that? I know that if it weren't for your maneuvering behind the scenes, I would have lost my position as Empress long ago. Duaning looked up at the bright moon. In the past, I was solely devoted to the Emperor. Blind to the dangers of the harem, until what? Until I saw you. Duaning turned to me. You neither strive nor contend, yet handle everything with thoroughness, indifferent to fame and fortune, yet no one dares to bully you. Only then did I realize that a woman can live like this, not wholly dependent on a man, yet still live a splendid life. In her previous life, Duaning lived and died for love, but in this life, influenced by me, she has found her self-worth. You flatter me. Sister, I said softly, I am merely accustomed to idleness. Duaning laughed. You, always so modest, she said with a serious expression. I have summoned you today to discuss an important matter. The Pei family is about to fall from power, and after Consort Li's downfall, the dynamics of the inner court will inevitably shift dramatically. I wish to ask you to assist in managing the affairs of the 6 palaces. I looked at her in astonishment. Assisting in managing the 6 palaces, this meant immense power, but also immense responsibility. I fear I am not worthy. Do not rush to refuse. Juanin grasped my hand. It's not for my sake, but for Chengye. He is growing day by day. If you hold no power, how can you protect him? I remained silent for a moment. Juanin was right. In this deep palace, power is the best talisman for protection. If I want to safeguard Chengye, I cannot hide behind others forever. Your servant obeys the decree. Juanin smiled with relief. Excellent. With us sisters united in heart, the rear palace will surely be stable. Sisters united in heart. Once we were sworn enemies, but now we have become true sisters. Fate is truly wondrous. On the way back to the palace, I looked up at the star-filled sky, feeling an unprecedented sense of peace in my heart. The grudges and passions of my past life seemed to have vanished with the wind. In this life, I have finally found my place, not as a power-hungry empress, nor as a concubine hiding from the world, but as a mother, a friend, and a sister with the strength to protect those I love. Chengye's future, Yenshu's child, Juaning's trust, these have all become the new meaning of my life. As for the emperor, He has long ceased to matter in my heart. In early September, the news of Pei Genyu's dismissal and investigation struck the court like a thunderbolt. That day, I was teaching Changye to identify medicinal herbs when Yanqiu rushed in. Your Highness, something terrible has happened. General Pei has been escorted back to the capital and imprisoned in the Ministry of Justice's dungeon. My hand holding the medicine roller paused slightly, sooner and harsher than in my past life. What's the situation at the Crimson Cloud Palace? Consort Li insisted on seeing the Emperor but was stopped by Li Dequan outside the Hall of Diligent Governance. Yanqiu lowered her voice. I heard that after she returned to the palace, she smashed quite a few things and even took her anger out on several palace maids. I sighed softly, feeling a pang of sorrow. No matter how arrogant Consort Li was, she was still a prisoner in this deep palace, living only by relying on the power of her father and brothers. Mother, Consort Li, Changye looked up at me with his little face. I patted his head. She has lost something important. Remember, Changye. In this life, one cannot place all their hopes on external things, whether it's power, wealth, or the affection of others. They can all vanish in an instant. Only the strength within oneself is the true reliance. Chengyi nodded earnestly. He might not yet fully grasp the painful lessons behind these principles. But one day, he would understand. Your Highness. Yang Shuang rushed in frantically. Something's happened at the Jade Rinsing Studio. Consort WN is suddenly suffering from severe abdominal pain. Physician Ju says it's poisoning. The medicine roller in my hand clattered to the ground. Sure enough, it's happening. Consort Li's desperate counterattack. Prepare the sedan chair, I said sternly. Changye, stay in the palace. Don't go anywhere. The Shuyu study was in chaos. Yang Shu lay on the bed. His face deathly pale, his forehead covered in cold sweat, his hands gripping the bedding tightly. Physician Ju was applying acupuncture, his expression grim and terrifying. What happened? I rushed to the bedside. It's oleander powder. Imperial Physician Ju's voice trembled. It was mixed into Consort Wan's pregnancy tonic. Fortunately, it was discovered in time. Otherwise, I immediately grabbed Yenshu's wrist to check her pulse. The pulse was slippery and scattered, a clear sign of poisoning, though not yet life-threatening. The heartbeats of the two fetuses in her womb were still relatively strong. Go to my palace and fetch the detoxifying powder, I shouted at Yan Shuang, and the silver needle kit. Hurry, Yang Shuang rushed away. I turned to Dr. Ju. Have you induced vomiting? Vomiting has been induced. Not enough. I immediately checked Yang Shu's pupils with my hands. Oleander poison has entered the heart meridian. We must protect the heart pulse immediately. I took a small bottle from the pouch at my waist and poured out 2 pills. These are my own concoction, containing rhinoceros horn, musk, and bezoar. Physician Ju's eyes widened. But musk is harmful to a fetus. A small amount won't hurt. Saving a life is what matters. I pried open Yenshu's mouth and slipped the pills inside. Not long after the medicine was administered, Yenshu's breathing gradually steadied, but he remained unconscious. Child, save, she murmured unconsciously. I held her hand. Don't be afraid, both you and the child will be fine. Yan Shuang brought the silver needles and antidote powder, and I personally administered the acupuncture for Yangshu. In my previous life, I studied various poisons and their antidotes to compete for favor, never expecting to use that knowledge to save lives in this one. 2 hours later, Yangshu was finally out of danger. Imperial Physician Ju wiped the sweat from his forehead. Thanks to the noble consort's miraculous healing hands, who administered the poison, I asked coldly. It was Yunxiang, the one by Consort Li's side. A young palace maid knelt down, sobbing. She impersonated someone from the Imperial Household Department to deliver the fetal tonic. A cold glint flashed in my eyes. As expected, Consort Li, driven to desperation, actually dared to harm the Imperial heir. Take good care of your mistress. I rose to my feet. Notify me immediately if there is any abnormality. Leaving the Shuyu Pavilion, I headed straight for the Jiangyun Palace. It was time to settle this once and for all. The gates of Jiangyun Palace were tightly shut, but they couldn't block the sounds of shattering and weeping from within. I signaled the guards not to announce my arrival and pushed the door open. The hall was in complete disarray, with Consort Li standing amidst a pile of shattered porcelain, her once beautiful face twisted into a terrifying expression, her hair disheveled. Shen Yanqing, she turned and saw me, her eyes shooting a venomous glare. Here to mock me. I have no time for such idle matters, I said coldly. Consort Li, you ordered someone to poison Lady WN. The evidence is irrefutable. Consort Li laughed loudly. Evidence? Is that lowly servant still alive? What a pity. She suddenly grabbed a vase and smashed it on the ground. With the Pei family fallen, what do I have left to fear? Have you not considered Pei Lanshin? The Pei family has fallen, but your niece is only 12 this year. Can you bear to implicate her? Consort Li shuddered all over. How do you know about Lanshin? I know more than you can imagine. I took a step forward. Stop now. The Emperor, in light of the Pei family's past merits, will not take your life. But if anything happens to Consort WN or the royal heir, ha ha ha. Consort Li suddenly burst into hysterical laughter. Shen Yanqing, oh Shen Yanqing, you've pretended to be noble your whole life, and now you finally show your true colors. For that Yang Shu, is it worth it? Not for her, I said calmly. It's for the innocent child. Consort Li's laughter abruptly ceased. She stared at me intently, her eyes filled with complex, unreadable emotions. Do you know what I hate most about you? It's this very demeanor of yours, always so aloof, forever untouched by the dust of the world. She staggered closer. Do you think you've won? Let me tell you, in this deep palace, there are no winners. I looked into her frenzied eyes and suddenly felt a wave of pity. In her previous life, Consort Li had been the same, walking toward destruction in utter despair. I will take care of Pei Lanshin, I said softly. At least, find her a good family. Consort Li froze. The madness in her eyes gradually turning into confusion, then deep exhaustion, she slowly slid to the ground, like a woman who had suddenly aged. Why? She murmured. Why is it you? I did not answer, turned around, and left. Behind me, Consort Li's heart-wrenching sobs echoed through the opulent cage. Lingering for a long time, 3 days later, an imperial decree was issued. Consort Li of the Pei family, for plotting to harm the imperial heir, was stripped of her title and reduced to a commoner, then confined to the cold palace. Pei Zhenyu was sentenced to immediate execution, and the entire Pei family was to have their property confiscated and be exiled, with only underage females pardoned. On the 10th day of the 10th month, Yang Shu went into labor. That day, the autumn sky was clear and refreshing, and I arrived early at the Shuyu Pavilion to oversee matters. How is the situation? Duaning asked Imperial Physician Zhu nervously. Reporting to Your Majesty the Empress, Consort Wan's fetal position is correct, and she should be able to give birth smoothly. Imperial Physician Zhu wiped his sweat. It's just. But what? I took over the conversation. It's just that Consort WN has a weak constitution, so the labor might take longer. There's no need for Your Majesty to worry. Duaning nodded, pulling me aside. Nianqing, if it really is twins, I have already thought of a solution, I whispered. We can say the second child is an auspicious gift from heaven, bestowed due to the Empress's sincere prayers. According to custom, the child can be raised under the Empress's name. Duaning's eyes lit up. That's a brilliant idea. It not only resolves the taboo but also. Her words were cut off by Yenshu's cry of pain. The midwife shouted, the head is showing. Noble lady, push. 4 full hours later, a loud infant's cry pierced the night sky. It's a little prince, the midwife announced joyfully. Just as everyone was about to breathe a sigh of relief, Yang Shu suddenly grabbed the sheets. There's another one. Imperial Physician Zhu's face changed dramatically. Quick, prepare. The second one is coming. After another hour of arduous struggle, the second child was finally born safely, a little princess, a dragon and phoenix pair. The midwife exclaimed, this is an immense auspicious sign. Duan Ning knelt and kowtowed in gratitude to the heavens. This is the Emperor's benevolence moving heaven and earth, bestowing this auspicious sign upon our great Xia. When the news reached the Hall of Diligent Governance, the Emperor was overjoyed and immediately issued an edict promoting Yang Shu to the rank of WN consort, granting her 1,000 taels of gold. As for the taboo of twins, under the belief of the auspicious sign of a dragon and phoenix pair, no one mentioned it again. I looked at the exhausted but happy Yang Shu and the 2 healthy newborns by her side, feeling a great weight finally lifted from my heart. The tragedy of the previous life had been completely rewritten in this one. Spring of the 10th year of Kang Yuan, the Imperial Garden, I sat in the pavilion, watching the children playing not far away. 16-year-old Changye was teaching the 5-year-old twins of Consort WN how to write, his expression earnest and gentle. Sister seems to be in good spirits. Juanan approached gracefully and sat down beside me. Sister, I rose to greet her, but she held me back. You're too polite. Duan Ning smiled and shook her head. Look how happy the children are playing. I nodded. Over the past 5 years, the imperial harem had been surprisingly peaceful. Consort Li spent the rest of her days in the cold palace, and the other consorts all behaved themselves. Duan Ning managed the harem with great order. and both Sh and I became her most capable assistants. I heard the Emperor tested Changye on his studies yesterday and praised him again. Duaning asked. I smiled. The Emperor has started having him learn to review memorials. Duaning looked at me meaningfully. The talk of appointing an heir has resurfaced. My expression remained unchanged. Changye is still young. There's no rush. Duan Ning shook her head. If it were anyone else, they would have been eager to push their son to the throne. But you are so indifferent. It's not indifference, it's clarity. The power games I couldn't see through in my past life, I now understand thoroughly in this one. The throne may not be a blessing. True peace is what matters. By the way, Duaning suddenly lowered her voice. Is consort WN pregnant again? I nodded. 2 months along. Physician Zhu says the pregnancy is very stable. That's wonderful. A flicker of envy passed through Duaning's eyes, but she soon relaxed. I have not been blessed with the fortune of having a child of my own, but now, with Chengqing and Anning, I am content. Chengqing and Anning are the formal names of Yanshu's twin children, grateful for the protection offered by the Empress and me. Yangshu took the initiative to request that Prince Chengqing be raised under Duaning's name, giving the childless Duaning someone to rely on. The little princess, Anning, was to be raised by Yangshu herself. Sister treats them as her own, it is their good fortune, I said sincerely. Duan Ning patted my hand. Between us sisters, there's no need for such words. Sisters, yes, now we are truly sisters. The grudges from our past lives have long since vanished with the wind, Empress Mother. Noble consort, little A with Macronen Ning came skipping over, holding a freshly picked flower in her hand. This is for you. Duaning joyfully picked her up. Anning is so well behaved. Watching this scene, my heart was filled with warmth. In my previous life, Anning was never born, but in this life, she has become everyone's little joy. The change of fate is truly wonderful. In the autumn of the 15th year of Kang Yuan, the Emperor fell seriously ill. That day, when I went to the Hall of Diligent Governance to pay my respects, the Emperor was leaning on the couch, his complexion ashen, but his eyes remained sharp. The imperial consort has arrived, he waved weakly. Sit. I bowed and took a seat on the stool he indicated. Your Majesty looks better than yesterday. I know my own body well. The Emperor coughed twice. There isn't much time left. I remained silent. In my previous life, the Emperor also fell seriously ill at this time. But back then I had been deposed and confined to the cold palace, so I never had the chance to see him. Nianqing, he suddenly called me by my maiden name. I have always wanted to ask you a question. Your Majesty, please speak. All these years, why have you never fought for favor? The Emperor looked directly into my eyes. I've seen too many women resort to every trick to gain favor. Yet you have always remained detached. Why? I hadn't expected him to ask this. After a moment of contemplation, I replied softly, your servant believes that the love of an emperor is like flowers in a mirror or the moon reflected in water. It cannot be forced. It's better to hold on to one's true heart and live more freely. The Emperor smiled bitterly and sighed. Changye, I am very pleased with him. He is kind and wise, and will surely be a wise ruler. My heart jolted. This was a clear hint that Changye was to be made the crown prince. Your Majesty, I know you don't wish for him to be entangled in disputes. The Emperor cut me off. But the great Xia Empire needs a ruler like him. He struggled to sit up. Nianqing, promise me, if anything happens to me, you must teach Changye well, make him a benevolent ruler. I solemnly knelt. Your servant will remember. The Emperor closed his eyes wearily. You may withdraw. Let Duaning and the children come in. I bowed and exited, encountering the waiting Duaning, Yangshu, and the children at the door. Changye was already 21 years old, tall and graceful, with a blend of the Emperor's determination and my own gentleness in his features. Mother, he looked at me with concern. Father, watching their retreating figures enter the Hall of Diligent Governance. I suddenly realized that in this lifetime, I had finally obtained everything I had longed for in vain in my previous life, my child's safe growth, sincere friendship, and inner peace. As for those past grievances and entanglements, they no longer mattered. In the spring of the 16th year of Kang Yuan, the Emperor passed away, and Changye succeeded to the throne, changing the era name to Jingming. At the new emperor's enthronement ceremony, I looked at Changye in his dragon robe, my heart filled with pride and tranquility. Mother Empress, after the ceremony, the young emperor called to me. I am somewhat uneasy, my child. I adjusted his crown for him. Remember your mother's words. A ruler should base his actions on benevolence and virtue, and put the people first. As long as you hold the people in your heart, there is no need to fear. Changye nodded solemnly. Your son will remember the Empress Dowager's teachings. Duaning was honored as the Empress Dowager, while I was honored as the Holy Mother Empress Dowager. Yangshu was promoted to Noble Consort Dowager. Her son Chengqing was enfeoffed as a prince, and little Anning was also granted the title of Princess Anning. Both the imperial court and the rear palace were filled with peace and harmony. Those bloody struggles seemed like a distant memory. That day, I was drinking tea in the Jyongbokgung Palace garden when Yangshu brought Anning to pay their respects. Your Majesty, the Empress Dowager. She performed the ritual salute with perfect form, yet a playful smile lingered in her eyes. How have you been lately? Very well, I smiled and pulled little Anning closer. You've grown taller again. Anning nestled against me coquettishly. Mother, Anning wants to hear a story. What story would you like to hear? I want to hear the story of your youth. Yangshu and I exchanged a knowing smile. A story from my youth. It's a very, very long story about rebirth, about redemption, about how a woman let go of hatred and found true happiness. The events of my past life felt like a nightmare. In this life, I'm living well. The end.